FNS and S0m have made their grand return to the NRG roster, and will this move bring this team back to glory? Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we're talking about the recent news of FNS and S0m returning to the NRG roster and talking about if it'll make this team good again. So far in 2024, NRG have underperformed to expectations. They were expected to be one of the best teams in the league, and then they had a disappointing start to the year at kickoff and then a disappointing split one. So they decided to bring back two players that are on the roster last year and bench Demon1 and remove Marv from the roster. So is this the correct move? We're here to talk about it. So this is the board we have today. We have a mixture of stats from the 2024 split one and the 2023 regular season. Of course, when talking about the 2023 season, we're comparing the FNS and S0m performances to the Demon1 and Marv performances. Not that all these players are going to be playing the exact same roles or are alike, but we want to see if this is the good move. Starting off, we're going to be looking at the stage 1 stats in 2024, and mainly the reason why NRG needed a roster change. Their win-loss record was 3-3, their map record was 7-6. Both of those records were actually tied with G2 and Sentinels, so if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you could say, well, if they beat G2 in round differential, then they could have been in playoffs, and maybe they could have placed top 3 at Shanghai. And I'm just gonna tell you, no, that wouldn't happen. I'm sorry, it just wouldn't. This team was not playing up to standard, and it showed. They won 134 rounds, they lost 126, so they did have a positive round differential, but it just wasn't enough to beat out G2, as well as Sentinels, so they ended up being 5th place in their group, very last out of the 5. And during this split, they were playing teams in the other group, and now in the next split, in split 2, they will be playing teams in their group. So basically, this means that their schedule is potentially going to be getting a lot harder. Since there's only 5 teams in the group, they will be playing 4 matches. At the beginning of the split, they will be playing Sentinels, then after that G2, Crew, and then C9. Sentinels are going to be looking for the bounce back of their own since they missed out on Shanghai after winning Madrid, so that's going to be a tough match. G2 just placed top 3 at Shanghai, so that's not a walk either. That could go either way, but G2 have proven up to this point that they can be a tough team to beat. Then they're going to be playing Crew, a team that dominated during the split but just couldn't get over the hump at playoffs. And then C9, who were definitely a bit up and down but won a lot of games, but just really, I felt like their bubble burst. So none of these 4 matches are going to be easy matchups for this team, especially for a roster that, I mean, they're going to have more time to prepare than the teams that went to Shanghai in G2, but they're not going to have as much time throughout the entire year as other teams in the region. But you could also make the argument that FNS and S0m already been playing with Victor and Crashies, as well as Ethan probably having good chemistry with the team. Then that, kind of whole prep time argument about getting to gel with the team might not be as big of a problem for them. Just doing all that prep for just 4 matches, it is a tough hill to climb. So comparing the record to how they did last year in the regular season, let's look at their record there. Their win-loss record was 6-3. Their maps won was 14-7. Their rounds were 251 to 199 for plus 52, and they were 3rd place at the end of the split and then ended up placing 2nd in playoffs. Almost missing out on Tokyo because they actually lost to Evil Geniuses. That was kind of the big start of Evil Geniuses' miracle run. What was interesting about their split as well is that they started really poorly. They didn't look like a very good team throughout their first 3 matches, but they would find their footing and looked like the team that they were promised to be, and then it just didn't work out on the international stage. I decided to keep it to talking about regional stats and the regional records because to really talk about all the internationals, I feel like this team has to get there first for me to, make those comparisons. So I decided let's just keep it to just the in-region play. So now we're going to be looking at the 2 players that are coming back in FNS and S0m and their stats during that regular season split last year, as well as looking at the players that they're getting rid of and looking at their stats during stage 1. And I think if there's one argument that can very easily be made is swapping out FNS for Demon1 just on a pure firepower perspective. And yes, this is something that I believe Rocket Bullets said on Twitter. It is a downgrade when you just talk about firepower and individual skill. FNS is one of the best IGLs, but in terms of his own personal firepower, it's not exactly stellar. During that regular season stage, he had a rating of 0.89, 8 kills per round of 0.55, and a key ratio of 0.80. During that split, he played Killjoy, Sky, Breach, Viper, and KO. FNS's value comes from his IGL, and he's been known throughout his time in Valorant as one of, if not the best IGL in the world. He's a great leader, he has good chemistry with other players on the team as well as Chet. He knows the system well, he knows the players well, and this should be a good improvement on Ethan being the IGL. It was clear early on that while Ethan wasn't like the worst IGL you could possibly have, it definitely wasn't the fit that NRG wanted it to be. This team really needed a true leader, and they just didn't have it. And we see with teams like 100 Thieves, with Boostio coming in, when you have that true leader, that big personality, that guy that can lead this team, not only in IGL and in strats, but just in overall vibe, that it can absolutely turn team season around and make a team mesh. And I think that's more important than just looking at individual skill, which is kind of what it felt like NRG was doing in the offseason. While I liked the addition of Demon 1 and Ethan, I thought it kind of just feels like they're going after big names. I was surprised that they brought Ethan back because he's been on that team like twice. So it definitely felt like a weird fit when you had FNS, who was already a very good IGL, and SOM performed very well last season. Not that on paper Marv coming in to play the smokes role was like a huge downgrade, but definitely a downgrade because the way that SOM played last year really impressed me. He was fragging out and he was playing well on the smokes role. During the 2023 regular season, he had a rating of 1.13, 8 kills per round of 0.76, and a KD ratio of 1.18. Doing this all while playing smokes, a role that typically doesn't get a lot of kills. He was playing Harbor, Viper, Omen, Astra, and Brimstone, so a bona fide smokes role. And he was very good at it. I felt like with the way that he was playing that maybe we could see him on Duelist, he might be good on that, but I think having a very skilled player on smokes, and if he's fine with doing it, if he's comfortable with doing it, then just keep him there. Then you can find firepower from other parts in your lineup if you need it. But getting it from a role that typically needs to just try to hold down sites as good as they can, SOM was doing a good job at it. So I think SOM coming back is a really good idea. I think FNS coming back is a great idea as well, because you get that leader, you get that IGL back, you get that young, just firecracker of a player that is SOM, but is losing Demon 1 and Marv the correct move? Starting with looking at Demon 1's stats during that stage 1. He had a rating of 0.95, 8 kills per round of 0.70, and a KD ratio of 0.91. He was playing Jet, Raze, and Brimstone. I know a lot of people complained about his Raze. I didn't think he was terrible on the role, but he definitely wasn't as good as Victor was. When Victor played that Raze role, he was much better at it, and it makes sense. Victor is a very aggressive player, and with Demon 1 playing entry, it just didn't work out on this team. With him on Evil Geniuses last year, he had Jogmo, and Jogmo was very good at playing insanely aggressive to set up his team. He would just satchel in as Raze, he would get a kill, he would die, then that gives the space to Demon 1 and other players on that team to come in and clean up. So with Demon 1 being the main entry on this team without having a Jogamo, it just didn't work out in the same way. Maybe it was he just didn't feel as comfortable with his teammates. Maybe he felt he didn't trust his teammates as much as he did on EG. Whatever the case may be, I don't think Demon 1 was set up for success on this roster. But does that mean they should have moved him to the 6th man? Honestly, I probably would have made a different change. While I do like Ethan, I probably would have benched him. While Ethan on an individual level was performing better than Demon 1 and better than other players on the team, I don't know how his role fit with the entire team. And while with Jet not being as good in the current meta as Raze right now, and them probably preferring Victor on that Raze, it makes sense for Demon 1 role-wise to be moved to the 6th man. But that also means you're losing a lot of firepower. You're losing a lot of that just individual just ability to just frag out and take over a game. And we saw flashes of that with Demon 1 during this season so far. So while I understand the argument of swapping him out because of the roles and you have Victor on, I don't know which player on this team is going to be playing Jet now. I doubt we see Crashies or Ethan on it. Maybe Victor gives it a try, but you probably want to keep him on Raze if you can. So they don't really have a bona fide Jet player anymore, which isn't as important as it was in previous years, but I definitely think it kind of hurts the roster just from an overall duelist standpoint. Say you swapped out Ethan, you kept Demon 1, you bring FNS and SOM in, you still have Victor who can be that Raze player. He can be the Jogamo to the Demon 1, and they can play a similar style like EG did last year. I know Chet and his coaching style is very different from that of Potter's, but I definitely think there was some adjustments to be made there, and I felt like when they did run Victor on the Raze and then Demon 1 on Jet on Split, that it kind of worked out. It wasn't world beater or anything, but if you can maybe refine that and refine that aggressiveness of both players, then maybe there's something to be had there. But now we'll never know if that can be refined. But there's also Marv, who was basically just completely jettisoned from this roster. I do like Marv. I do still think there is value there. I think there is a solid smokes player in there, and he didn't perform terribly, but he definitely didn't play as good as he has in the past. He had a rating of 0.95, a kills per round of 0.65, and a KD ratio of 0.93. Granted, he was mainly playing smokes, playing Viper and Omen, but also a bit of Cypher, so you're not expecting that role to really frag out. And his KD ratio for a smokes player isn't terrible, but I do think it makes sense to put SOM in that role over Mard. I don't think they should have let SOM and FNS walk in the first place, so I do think it makes sense to make this change. So I do feel bad for him, but I hope he gets another roster. I think there is still something there with Marv, and hopefully he finds it at some point. So overall, is this roster swap good? Is bringing in FNS and SOM the move to truly make this team tournament contenders? Are they going to make champs? At this point, we do not know. My prediction is they're going to be better. I still don't know if they make champs, though. I think it's going to be really tough. Their schedule is very hard. While the roster structure should work a lot better chemistry-wise, I don't know if it's going to be able to stop some of the big offenses that we have in the VCT Americas. And while I do really like Victor, and Victor on Raze is very good, can he truly be the main and potentially only duelist player on this team? Is that enough firepower to get this team to an international tournament and potentially win it? I hope so. I like this team. I've always liked SOM and FNS. I've always liked Victor and Crashies. I like Demon 1, so that's unfortunate. Ethan's going to go for back-to-back champ wins. There's a chance he does it, but I just don't know if I see this team doing a ton aside from just improving in general. This will improve the team. I think it can't really get much worse unless they just lose every single game. But when looking at how Valorant is changing, how teams are adapting to it, I don't know if I see this roster doing much after that, and potentially it might just be too little too late. But again, I hope I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think of this change? Do you think this change is going to get this team to champions, to improve a lot more during Split 2? Let me know what you think of everything I talked about in this video. Please click like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.